Hey, what's going on, guys? Kevin Zwicker from the Fast Count coming at you. Before I get into this live, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. We're less than 100 subs away from 2,000. So if you hit that subscribe button, it'd be much appreciated. This is the 2025 Royal Rumble post show, and I am joined by none other than Robin Lundberg. You can catch him on the Women's Fast Break. You can catch him on the Robin Lundberg Show on YouTube, which is in the description. You can catch him on the SmackDown post shows with Denise Salcedo on her YouTube channel, and you can occasionally catch him on Busted Open. Robin, what's going on, man?
What up? What up? I mean, coming off maybe the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. That's what's going on.
It's definitely one of the more controversial finishes of all time. I feel like me and you are definitely going to have a decent back and forth on the result of the end. But what are your initial thoughts, man, and how are you feeling coming out of this show?
I'm feeling pumped. It's amazing. I feel like a kid. I mean, look honestly, I mean, I'd have to go back and think, but it at bare minimum was the best Royal Rumble since 2020, which I've argued before is the best Royal Rumble in history. 92 is another one that people like to throw out. There's a lot of, but I'm not sure there's ever been a better Royal Rumble, all things considered, than this one when you're talking about pacing, when you're talking about star power, when you're talking about moments, when you're talking about storytelling. Hell, before we get to the end, you've got the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns bit, which calls back to obviously a Shield, but calls back to WrestleMania last year and the way that Roman lost that title and possibly planted the seeds for, I don't know, was it a triple threat? Roman, Punk, Seth? I mean, there was a lot that happened in that moment. And then how often is it, honestly, especially in today's day and age, where you get caught off guard by the way they go and the direction they go? And not only did you get surprised by the result, but you were emotionally invested in the surprise because Jey Uso just lost to Gunther. Like, he almost had it. It felt like that was going to be his moment. And then he lost, which hurt if you were rooting for Jey Uso. And then all of a sudden, he eliminates John Cena to win the Royal Rumble. What a moment. I mean, that's as good as it gets. It's as good as it gets.
Honestly, dude, going into this show, I kind of felt like I had a decent, thought process on where the direction we were going to go heading towards WrestleMania. But it now feels like somebody went into my brain and went into the file cabinet and took all the file, just ripped it up in my head. Now I don't know where things are going. We're going to start with the beginning, the women's Royal Rumble match, because the end of that was a little bit more predictable. But I feel like sometimes people, when they say predictable, they take it as a negative. When sometimes that, I feel like, and especially in this situation, the predictable manner was the right direction to go. How are you feeling that Charlotte Flair won this match, and what are your initial thoughts on the women's Royal Rumble match?
Yeah, I thought the women's Royal Rumble match was solid. Nothing negative to say about it at all. It's going to be amongst the least memorable things on this show because some of the other stuff was so memorable. But, it also, the fact that Charlotte had Cena won, it would have felt by a very by the numbers show at that point, right? Like, this is a legit, I mean, this is what's going to be funny about it, because I guarantee you there will be, I'll go back to the women in a second, but I guarantee you there'll be people complaining online about the result who are the same people that complain everything's predictable all the time. That's going to be the delicious part of it. But Charlotte looked good. There were some good performances in the women's Royal Rumble, but it felt like, kind of setting up Charlotte and Tiffany, which we've thought about and talked about. And I'm down for it. Maybe that's the best match at WrestleMania. Like, that has a chance to be the best match at WrestleMania. But I didn't, I wasn't wowed by anything that happened in the women's Royal Rumble. It was like a beat, right? Like, it felt like it was solid, good, nothing wrong with it. But, it's not the sticking point of the show.
For me, especially with Royal Rumbles matches, man, it feels like kind of like a collage of different memories of the past year, or maybe even the past 3 years, because you're always seeing different alliances that we've seen in the past, or we're seeing different people match up, in certain spots of the Rumble where we know that they have a history together. I thought it was pretty good, like you said before. I love the fact that the Royal Rumble this year, especially with the women's one, was very NXT driven. You got the official WWE debut of Jordynne Grace. We got the return of Trish Stratus, who ages like a fine wine. I'm excited about Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair. Like you said before, that could possibly be the show stealer at the whole WrestleMania. In your opinion, who would go over in a match like that?
I think it's got to be Tiffany. I mean, what does Charlotte gain from that? There's been so much to build Tiffany to where she is. It kind of feels like you just take the rug out from under her to have her lose to Charlotte Flair versus what it would mean for her to go over on Charlotte Flair. Look, I mean, Charlotte is, I'm not saying isn't deserving of another championship run. She's arguably the best of all time. There's no arguably the greatest of all time. No qualms about that. I just think timing wise, the win for Charlotte was winning the Royal Rumble. Then the win for Tiffany is beating Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too, because Charlotte Flair is already a made individual. She's already going to be a WWE Hall of Famer no matter what. Everything else is icing on the cake. We all know eventually she's going to be able to break her father's record when it comes to, the championship reigns. But I think Tiffany Stratton is obviously the individual who should be going over on that because, like I said, Charlotte is already the made individual. You're trying to make Tiffany Stratton, the biggest superstar that she could possibly be at the current moment, and she's the younger individual between the two. Who is your MVP for this match? Because for me, it has to be Chelsea Green.
Oh, that's a good call. Nia Jax wasn't in there that long, but I feel like she's perfect for a Royal Rumble, right? Like, to come in and do. And then there was just so many of those NXT spots, but I'm not mad at Chelsea Green because I didn't think there were too many of those like, this person has done this and this person has been in for so long. It wasn't one of those kind of matches.
One of the things that I really liked about it, and I think this is the first time that they've ever done this, is where it kind of looks like an ESPN stat line at the bottom, where they're saying, this individual has, eliminated so many people, or this person has been around, so long. I thought that was a super nice touch.
Yeah, no, it's good. The graphic, it was clean too. It wasn't distracting. I think Pat McAfee even pointed that out on the broadcast. It wasn't distracting. It helped you know how many people were left. All those things. I don't think I've ever seen it in a Rumble before, but it was done tastefully and well.
For sure. What do you think about Jordynne Grace's performance, man? She came in there and looked like a badass completely.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of how she was introduced to people, right? Last year to the broader audience, but it was kind of running that back, and every Rumble has a moment or two like that where a beast comes in and looks like a beast. I mean, it's one of the best ways to intro someone or get them a quick buzz or a pop is to have them come clean house like that, and I think it was exactly what I was expecting when she came through the curtain.
For sure. This match, we also got returns of many superstars. Like I mentioned before, we got the return of Trish Stratus. We got Nikki Bella coming in at number 30. But we also got the return of Alexa Bliss. And somebody who does wrestling content a lot, I read a whole bunch of different dirt sheet rumors of she's coming back, she's not coming back. We heard Wade Barrett take a pot shot of, I'm assuming it'd be Dave Meltzer because he was the main person saying that she's not coming back. What did you think about that? And how do you feel that Alexa Bliss is back in the equation?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with her because she feels like anyone who's ever been associated with the Mystic stuff, it always feels like their intro is bigger than where they go, right? Like that every time, even to the late great Bray Wyatt, like I felt like the build up to his stuff was always bigger than his stuff. Same thing with the Wyatt Six. The build up to that was bigger than it's been since. And there's been a lot of like, is Alexa Bliss doing? Where's she going to be? She's coming back. And there it was, and it was a great moment. I think people were caught by surprise, which is what you really want. You got that pop, but I don't know what happens next yet, so I don't really have, I'm not over the moon about. I'm certainly not negative about it. A good moment, but I don't know if it's, if that's the best it's going to be. I guess is what I'm saying.
You're so right when it comes to that stuff. Really, the only two individuals that, in my mind, were able to shake off that spooky stuff and have, be main event players all the time where they were picking up consistently W's was The Undertaker and Kane. Mm-hmm. Outside of those two guys, and I don't want to come across like I'm dissing Bray Wyatt because Bray Wyatt is obviously going to be a WWE Hall of Famer as well, but he took a lot of pins. Let's just be honest, So I completely agree with you on that. No AJ Lee, man. It feels like everybody online was, crossing their fingers that we were going to get this. I don't know if you saw any of the promotional material when they were doing the press conference and stuff, and when CM Punk was talking, the whole crowd was shouting AJ Lee at him. Did you ever think that was a thing that was going to happen, or were you pretty pessimistic on her appearing?
I mean, there was no reason to believe it other than. So here's the thing. One thing I'm never going to do is get disappointed about something not happening that is just made up out of thin air. You know, like it's one thing if they're teasing me and they're telling me and then they don't deliver. That's one thing. It's another thing when people just go like, "Bah, bah, 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 bah," and then they get mad because their own expectations weren't met. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's not a fair goal to set for anybody because there was never any hint of AJ Lee coming back. WWE hasn't met. Nobody's teased it. The only is association with CM Punk. So again, I think that's something that could happen. Maybe it's something that even likely will happen at some point down the line. But I didn't sit down on my couch to watch the Royal Rumble tonight expecting AJ Lee to come out.
For sure. It was one of those things where it's like, just like you said, there was never any reputable reporters saying that this is going to happen or people saying they spotted her in Indy. It was just one of those things where it's like you're crossing your fingers and hoping that possibly it could happen. But like you said, there was no actual people stating that this is what's going to go down. I kind of feel like as the years go by, the more years that she's out of the ring, the less likely it's going to be that she's going to return. But that's just me. Overall, I give this match like a B, like you said. We're going to go into the tag team match, which was the second match of the night. We had the Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY and a 2 out of 3 falls match. I don't know about you, Robin, but personally for me, I felt bad for these guys. Because anytime that you have a Royal Rumble match and then a match following them, I always feel like the crowd is like kind of going to be dead.
Well, you had a Royal Rumble match, another Royal Rumble match to come, and the other match was a ladder match. So it's kind of, it was the bathroom break match on the marquee. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was good though. I didn't think it was bad. But like even when it started, I was like, that was when I was checking my phone or doing whatever else I needed to do at the time. If I had to go feed the kids, that's when I would have done it. And no disrespect to those guys, but they're not on the same level as the other participants that were in either match. Their match didn't have it had a stipulation, which gave it a little bit of an identity and a distinction, but it's not a ladder freaking match, right? But it kept the show moving. It was paced well. Good work in the match. I mean, it served its purpose. Sometimes that's not even a bad thing. It served its purpose. You weren't like, oh my God, that killed the crowd. Or you weren't like, oh my God, can this end? It was like, okay, cool.
For sure. And these are all 3 guys. Many of you guys don't know, I'm one of the nerdiest of the nerds when it comes to wrestling. Trade taping, watching stuff that guys wrestle in their garage. That's how deep I'm into this stuff. So guys like Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin and Tommaso Ciampa, who I watched at like 1 o'clock in the morning on Ring of Honor. For me personally, watching them on this show, knowing that before they even got into the ring, that people weren't going to be all that excited for it was sad. I thought what was interesting, though, was the end, when we got the Street Profits turning heel. And that's something that I feel like is going to inject a little bit of energy into the tag team division because you already got the New Day, who are extremely hot right now as heels. And I feel like the Street Profits, especially a guy like Montez, who, if you guys don't remember, a couple of years ago, people were touting that he was going to be kind of in a position like Jey Uso is right now, where he was a guy who was, a tag team wrestler, but everybody saw eventually he was going to be a singles guy. I think this is really going to be able to benefit these 2 guys in the long run, and especially a guy like Tez.
Yeah, he needs it. They need it, and we need to find out about him at some point because it did feel like, future main eventer, and now he feels like mid-carder. That's they needed a little bit of a change in direction. So I think it's the way to go. I mean, look, they're trying to emphasize the tag division a little bit. So I give them, they've had a little bit more time to play with on SmackDowns and the like. So I'm willing to see where it goes. I mean, the New Day desperately needed that. And I think, the Street Profits needed a new direction as well. And if you are talking about the groups that we just saw, they still feel like the biggest deal amongst them, right? Like of DIY and Motor City Machine Guns, Street Profits feel like if you were going to tell me I had to, hitch my ride to one of those groups, they would be the horse I would pick.
Yeah, for sure. I'm extremely excited about the direction they're going to go. And like you said, there's at a time point where we got to figure it out. Is this really legit? And I feel like the time is now. Next, we're going to go into the ladder match between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. Now, SmackDown, where we saw that, promo battle between CM Punk and Kevin Owens. I knew going into this night that it was a 99.9% chance that Cody Rhodes is going to win this match. But at least for me, I thought that after that promo, there was maybe just a 99.8% chance that KO was going to win this match. What did you think about this match? I thought it was extremely violent in a good way. And I'm taking away that this is possibly Cody Rhodes' best title defense match outside of the stuff, with the bloodline.
Yeah, no, it was good. Strong. The KO character has worked in this bid. I knew Cody was going to win, but it had those spots that you want. It certainly did. I mean, there were two at least, but two that stick out of my mind as just like vicious spots. The one that ultimately ended up winning the match for Cody, and then the one that Cody took through the ladder in the ring. I mean, KO is very versatile performer. Obviously, maybe since Mick Foley, the best bump taker in the entire business, or up there, right? Like, just on pure bumps, he might be the best. I mean, you have other guys who do more stunt bumps, like Darby Allin or somebody like that. But as far as just like a traditional, like, boom, Kevin Owens is really strong at that. Good title defense for Cody Rhodes. Now it is time for Cody Rhodes to feel threatened. Like, throughout his entire title reign, he hasn't been actually threatened once. None of these matches did you go in thinking he was going to lose. You could convince yourself or talk yourself into it, but not really did we ever think. And I think it's been overall a successful title reign. The business is in a great place. People are hyped. It was a great match, but I think it should close the chapters of those matches where we don't feel like Cody might lose the belt.
I feel like now, especially now where we got the result of who won the Rumble match, I feel like we got that opponent kind of set up. It feels like now, because I even think after the Rumble went off, Uso said that he was going after the world title, which is Gunther, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I feel like that opens the door for John Cena winning the Elimination Chamber. Because now after we saw, the brawl between Roman Reigns and CM Punk and Seth Rollins, it feels like they're going to kind of be occupied with themselves, leaving Cody Rhodes there alone. And it's looking more, less likely that The Rock is going to be involved. So I feel like that kind of opens the door now for Cena winning the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, look, if The Rock was going to be involved, it probably would have happened by now, I think. And the whole Netflix thing kind of made me think he's not. So, I mean, I like the idea of Cody and Cena. I think it's, it's an interesting match. So, yeah, I mean, but who knows? I wouldn't rule any. I do think that one of the benefits to the way everything went tonight is it made the road to WrestleMania more unpredictable. I mean, I don't think you could say with any safe bet other than Jey Uso is going to face Gunther what the match is. It may be KO and Sammy going to be involved in something together. But yeah, I would still Tiffany, Charlotte. I would still guess Cena, Rhodes, but it's not a guarantee. And then I would maybe venture a guess of Punk, Roman, Rollins, which, by the way, if that happens, might actually main event one of the nights.
That's insane, right? Because I'm so interested now about that, because I knew that eventually, we were going to get to a point to where we're going to have Punk and Roman. And I like the way that they kind of planted the seeds now. But the fact that we got Seth back involved in this, and we've had Punk emphasize the fact that he really wants to main event WrestleMania. This is the Royal Rumble. It's a big deal. And the way that he was eliminated and the way that they brawled outside of the ring, it really leaves, many different questions as to where we're going to go. We don't even know where Logan Paul is going to be involved, right?
Yeah, it made me care about Seth Rollins more than I have in a long time. I'd say that's the main thing it did. Like, Seth always felt like the fourth wheel last year at WrestleMania until he got involved with Roman. And then I was like, oh, that's a beautiful touch. And then even since then, he's had his stuff with Punk and he had some things, but I don't know. His whole character to me is like the song and it feels a little bit over the top. I like the idea of him turning that way. And then just something about interacting with Roman elevates him. I mean, what about that moment in the ring where you had, I think it was Cena and Roman first, and then Punk came out.
Yeah.
And then Rollins came out. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, like this is, legit. Like think about the history and the talent in the ring right here. And I like the way It cost Roman again. I like the way Seth snapped as a result. And then you throw the Punk wrinkle in there, knowing that eventually we're getting Roman and Punk. I thought that whole sequence was really well done.
Shoot, I wouldn't even mind if we got, Rollins and Roman at WrestleMania. Of course, they've had matches in the past, but they've never had that WrestleMania match one-on-one. And the fact that this is a storyline that has always been interlocked throughout the years, no matter what Roman has going on, it kind of feels like Seth is always lurking in the background. And it feels like Roman is always in the back. I'd be totally down for, them going one-on-one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think after that, where does Punk then go? Based on that, like, because he was involved, which makes me think it could be a triple threat, which could then set up Roman and Punk in the future. But I'm with you. I mean, I'm signing up for a Roman Seth match after last year's WrestleMania and after the way that went down. And by the way, credit them for the storytelling that they plant those seeds and then they pay them all. Like, that happened almost a year ago now. Yeah. The Roman Seth thing, and there'd been no mention or confrontation or nothing between them, but you didn't need it until like this was it. It was really electric.
See, that's the thing that is far superior in my mind of the way Triple H books things and the way Vince McMahon booked things. Us as wrestling fans who watch the show on a weekly basis, we can recall things that happened 6 months ago or a year, sometimes even 15 years ago, depending on how long we've watched the show. Vince kind of booked it like, if something happened 2 weeks ago, we all kind of forgot about it. Yeah. And it's refreshing that it feels like you're being rewarded for paying attention.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, there are 2 shots from tonight's show that are just, one of them is the Roman Seth. I think I took a screenshot of both of them because I thought they might come in handy at some point.
Oh yeah, you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Where
one is this shot.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other one is this shot.
Yeah.
I mean, so think about getting those 2 shots in one event, right? Like, yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, that was some cool stuff, man. But one of the things about the Cody Rhodes match, that I thought everybody was assuming that it was going to happen, but it didn't, was the return of Randy Orton. There was no Orton in this match or no Orton in the Rumble match. Now, I don't think that his presence was sorely needed in the Royal Rumble match because it was probably just outside of maybe the 92 Rumble was the most star-studded Royal Rumble match of all time. So his presence wasn't missed that. But I thought eventually we were going to have him interfere with the KO match because he was the guy who put him out, and we still see no Randy.
Yeah, I mean, but given what we just talked about, when he comes back, it's going to matter. It's going to be, they didn't forget about it, right? Like
that's true because his return probably would have been overshadowed after what happened. I'm going to be honest with you, man. There's probably going to be people, and I'm not saying it's a huge percent, but there's probably going to be people who forgot that Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble because of how crazy that ending was of Jey Uso winning.
By the way, John Cena just said, I'm going to Elimination Chamber to win, and I'm going to main event my final appearance at WrestleMania and win a 17th championship because that's what's best for business.
Good stuff. Man, let me just get into a personal story. So my brother, me and my brother were 7 years apart, right? He loved John Cena, idolized John Cena. And of course, with our age gap, I thought John Cena was the lamest thing possible, right? Yeah. So The Rock wrestled John Cena, WrestleMania 28 in Miami. And it was the year buildup. So every single day I would go up to him and I'd say, The Rock's going to win. It would make him so angry. And the moment that The Rock beat John Cena, it was like my team won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because the amount of trolling that I had, I made him cry. Very satisfying as an older brother. But so, it was great. But John Cena, yes, he should win the Elimination Chamber, and I'm looking forward to that now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, and then all of this works so well, because Jey Uso and Gunther is a good match. Jey Uso needs his moment. It's going to come. But WrestleMania also needs the bright lights and the star power and all that. And I think that's where Cena comes into play. So there's a lot of different directions they can go. I think that the story with Jey and Gunther is Jey can't beat him, right? And he keeps losing to him. And he keeps losing to him. and it's the perfect title to put on Jay. It's the perfect way to coronate what the fans have chosen here, and that will be great. But I actually think Jay's real moment came tonight. Like, it's going to be cool when he wins the title, but when you look back on the career of Jey Uso, what is going to be the defining moment of the career of Jey Uso? It was tonight. You know, throwing John Cena out, winning the Rumble, catching everybody off guard. So the rest of it is gravy on top of that. And I'm not saying I'm not excited for the match, because I thought their match was really good at Saturday night's main event. They'll get more time. I think it'll fall a similar beat to the Sami Zayn Gunther match from a year ago, perhaps. But yeah, Jey Uso's, you know, his career will never look better than it did tonight. Like, that was it. That's the lead in the documentary and the whatever else that comes out, like him winning the Rumble tonight.
Imagine if he loses.
He can't lose now. He can't.
Just imagine.
Yeah, no, it's just such a waste.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just such a waste. Like, if he was gonna lose, he shouldn't have won the Rumble.
Yeah.
Like, you like some other way he could challenge and then lose, but if he was gonna lose, he shouldn't have won the Rumble. He's got to win.
So we're gonna go into the men's Royal Rumble match, and there was so many interesting spots in that match. I love the way that they started it off with Penta and Rey Mysterio. I really love their matches going back to Lucha Underground. Do you think that Penta really had just 1 foot hit, or do you think it was 2?
Oh, I didn't watch. Was that when he said the VAR? I didn't rewind it and check close enough. So I'd have to take another look. It didn't in real time make me think, oh my, definitely both feet hit. So I guess it was close enough.
In the moment when it happened, I was like, oh man, did they screw up? And I saw different, screen grabs on, Twitter and stuff. And I'm like, it's too hard to tell. But it kind of felt like, there's a couple different spots that they kind of looked like maybe Penta was a little bit too anxious, where they kind of, the timing was off and they, slipped a little bit. And I'm just going to chalk that up to nerves, because Penta has made it very clear throughout the years that his goal was always to end up in WWE. Whether he was working on the indies, even in AEW, there was times where you knew that this is a guy who eventually wanted to go to WWE. So I'm just going to chalk this up to nerves. What do you think about a potential Penta versus Rey Mysterio match in WWE?
I mean, I think it's great. I think it's like the perfect kind of match to open a night of WrestleMania, right? Just like they opened tonight. I mean, what's not to like? I think Penta's WWE introduction has gone very well, and there's nobody else better to pair him with for his first big match than Rey Mysterio.
One thing that I thought we were going to get, and this is, again, another instance like AJ Lee, because there was never really any, people reporting that this was going to happen. It was just kind of people speculating, was the return of Aleister Black, a.k.a. Malachi Black, in AEW. I thought, especially since they were teasing earlier, a few weeks ago, where Dominic Mysterio was talking about that I'm going to find basically a lucha killer. And that's somebody who, Aleister has been known in the past that he was going to be a lucha killer, man. Out of all these returns and debuts and stuff that we got in the Royal Rumble match, man, what was the one that got you the most?
I think I was probably Alexa Bliss might have been the one I was most caught off guard by when the music hit. Nikki Bella was actually an interesting one. I wasn't expecting it then, but it's not the same. On the men's side, I'm trying to think, was there... I mean, I think the speed bit was really well done. I mean, it was perfect, right? Like, if you're going to do something like that, it was flawless. And I thought Joe Henry's thing was cool. That wasn't totally unexpected, obviously. But I guess I would say Alexa Bliss is probably number one. But other than number two would be the speed bit. That really worked well.
Speed was the modern day Drew Carey spot in the Royal Rumble. I'm sure Speed is a huge hit in the Lundberg household. Somebody who was super impressive in the men's Royal Rumble match, two individuals really, was Braun Breaker and obviously Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu has kind of been on this big roll, in my opinion. He had that big showing at Saturday night's main event where he just destroyed Braun Strowman. And then he had that big showing on SmackDown where he had basically looking like a rabid dog with rabies, he's somebody who I'm very interested in seeing where he's going to go, WrestleMania wise, especially with us not knowing what's going on with Solo. I feel like we could potentially get a match between those two.
Yeah, I think you could do that. I think he could eventually be the one who takes the title off of Jay. Let's say Jay wins at WrestleMania over Gunther. Makes sense that Jacob Fatu would be the one to end his reign. There's a lot of different ways you can go, but I like the way that they even tease the Braun Breaker Jacob Fatu confrontation. I don't think we got them physically. I think we just got them, kind of like, oh, you're going to get this at some point in the future. We got Roman and Jacob Fatu. I like that Braun Strowman came for his revenge because he got punked so bad that he needed a measure of revenge, and it helped because otherwise, it was yes, it elevated Jacob Fatu, and it was probably his defining moment, but I almost feel like it killed Braun Strowman. So he needed to get his licks back a little bit, we're still waiting for Hulk to do after Thanos whipped him, but we he needed that a little bit, so I thought that worked. But yeah, and Braun Breaker's just physically so impressive with the pop that he has. You can't teach that.
I feel like the match really picked up once we had Cena come in at 23. That's when all the big guns started coming out. We got Punk coming out, Logan Paul, Seth Rollins. I thought that triangle triumphant of Punk, Cena, and Roman, when they were in the spot, where they're all waiting for Seth Rollins, and it's like they're waiting to jump. Three guys who have such a long history together, as we all know, Cena and Punk. A lot of people, they like to say that Randy Orton is Cena's biggest rival. In my mind, his biggest rival is CM Punk because I feel like their match was a lot more superior. So I just seeing the visual of those two in the ring together and with Roman, who Cena has a long history with, I thought it was great.
No, I thought so too. I mean, I thought having the Seth one again, it almost elevated Seth again, right? I'm part of this group. And then the thing with him and Roman also. But yeah, I mean, I think that they obviously did that deliberately, and they obviously told that story in the moment of look at who I am and look at who I'm looking at, and look at all of you looking at us. Right.
So I'm curious about this, man. Did you watch the show with Raj?
Yes.
What was his reaction when the last two was Uso and Cena?
He was nervous. I think, he kept asking me if I thought Jay could win. And I said, yeah, I did. I said, I think the fact that he's here now, he can win. It's going to be hard to take him getting thrown out again after seeing him lose to Gunther. So yeah, I think, but he was on edge, and so was I. That's the thing about it. Regardless of who you wanted to win or what you think of anybody, it's hard for specifically this business, which is, it's not a legitimate competition for you to be on the edge of your seat, not knowing what's going to happen, especially when you have, you're talking about the years and years of following and being in the trenches and in the weeds. For the most part, you have a pretty good idea. Every now and again, you'll be mildly surprised or you'll be unsure. Something could go either way. But to have you on the edge of your seat and that suspense, that was magic. It really was. It was mad. That's you're not going to forget that. People are not going to forget this Royal Rumble.
I'm 100% agreeing with you because I feel like going in, most people thought that Cena and Charlotte Flair were going to be the ones who were going to win. And there's a lot of times throughout the years where even before the match, you could kind of tell, oh, this individual's going to win, right? For us to be genuinely surprised, especially be kind of swerved like that, but not one of those swerves just to swerve, one of those good swerves where you had Cena be the last guy in there. It was right there for the taking, and then you get swerved, and you got Jey Uso, who I might even depend. How do I even say this? In sort of different situations, he may be even more over than a guy like Cody Rhodes or Roman Reigns. I mean, I know you've talked a lot about when you were in Fanatics Fest how Jey Uso had the longest line and had the most merch there. So for a guy who was a tag team wrestler for so long, to be able to win a Royal Rumble, and the last guy he eliminates is John Cena, the Babe Ruth of wrestling, is insane, right?
Well, I mean, I think he's more akin to Daniel Bryan or Kofi Kingston than anybody else.
Yeah.
And obviously not exactly the same beats as that. And the people who root for Daniel Bryan are kind of different than the people who root for Jey Uso in a sense, or some of them. Yeah, specifically the one who just raised his hand. But that sort of thing where the crowd just like chose and they decided this is our guy right now. We want it. And then the company, in other cases, they maybe had to be, dragged across the finish line kicking and screaming. But in this case, they recognized it. And I'll tell you that Fanatics Fest day. So remember, Fanatics Fest is not a WWE event. It was everything. You're supposed to bring your favorite jersey or whatever. And I understand also the sample is tainted because it was the day that Jey Uso was there. So people chose that. It was a 3-day event. People chose to go. But I am telling you, I feel like 80% of the people in that building were wearing Yeet merchandise. Of everybody. Like not of, like the people who were like of everybody in that building. And when you just see it over and over again, hell, I was at the SmackDown at Barclays Center when he came out through the crowd. Like when I just see Raj, right? Like when I see how much he genuinely is, like he was pissed after Saturday night's main event. The show sucked because Jey Uso lost, right? Even though I thought it was a very entertaining show. Like it was what I said with Mark Henry on Busted Open. It is what it is. Like you can nitpick. You can say he's not great in the ring or whatever. He's a tag team guy. You can't say the freaking audience doesn't love him. The consumer, the people that are watching your product and paying for it to go sit their ass in the seat and, talk about it and spread and buying the merchandise, they told you, like, enough is enough. Yeet.
For sure. And I recognize how business works, but just full transparency, I'm not the biggest Yeet guy. I'm a no Yeet guy. Yeah. All right. I don't really enjoy his matches, to be honest with you. But people buy merch. People I'm sure there's people who specifically buy tickets to go to shows to see him. His social media, engagement is large. People just randomly say Yeet in different pop culture events. Yeah. So it is what it is. The people have chosen this is the guy that they want. And like you said before, when you mentioned guys like Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan, this is an organic thing. And I feel like especially with them doing all this media, prior to the event, I'm not sure how long that they've had this decision locked in that they were going to go with Jey Uso, but I feel like it came to a point where it was undeniable that if it wasn't going to be John Cena, if they weren't going to go with the paint by numbers option, that they were going to go with Jey Uso.
Yeah, and look, there's so many different ways that this Rumble played out that were great with that storytelling because we had the moment that you thought was going to be the final four, essentially, right? Like Seth, Cena, Roman, and who am I missing?
Seth,
Punk.
Cena, Roman, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, that's usually the final four. You say, oh, look who's left. And that's what we would have predicted. If we had done a prediction show, that's what we would have said, something to that effect. They did that earlier, right? Like they did that earlier in the match. And then they did the bit with Roman and Punk and Seth. That was like the second thing that was like, okay, oh, this is great, right? Like, so you have those guys in the ring together, then you have that, which gave them all their purpose in that match. And then you get down to Cena and Jey, and you have, I think the announce crew said it right. Like, I don't know who to root for, right? Like that, it gave you that kind of feeling too. So without those other big boys involved, which I think it was masterfully done. That's why it very well recency bias is what it is. But if you're saying it's the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, I'm not mad. And I probably, right now, if you're asking me what's the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, I'd say tonight,
like, sure. I've always personally said that my two favorite Royal Rumbles are the 92 Rumble, of course, when Flair won, and the 2004 Rumble. Doesn't get talked about anymore because of the who won. If you guys don't know, Benoit won that one. So I always, those have always been my two personal favorite Rumbles. But this was up there because if you look at the Royal Rumbles just going within the last 5 years, you kind of already knew, or at least you had an inkling, but we're getting Jey Uso versus Gunther, running it back at WrestleMania. I think this is a great story. It's the Rocky story. We're going with the guy who, going up against the machine, Gunther. I think that's going to be the main event of at least night one, depending on if we're getting Cody versus Cena. I believe that probably main event night two. But
I don't think it's a guarantee that Jay and Gunther main event one of the nights. I don't think that's a guarantee.
Why? Because of the Punk and Roman?
Yeah, you got Punk and Roman in the same match. Like, that might main event, and whatever. The women's, it's not like both women's title matches main event every year. I mean, like, it's the same. It could so open the entire show. There's a chance, like, opening the entire show with that may give it better life than ending. It might main event one of the nights, but I don't know if it's a guarantee that it's main eventing one of the nights.
This is true. And there's always, I'm assuming he's going to at least appear. I think The Rock is going to appear. I don't think he's going to wrestle. Do you think that'd be safe to say, or do you think he's going to be off the show completely?
I don't know. Does he serve a purpose if he's not wrestling? Especially if you're not bloodlining it, right? Like, if it's not, because we haven't really gotten much bloodline related stuff since the tribal combat match, right? Like, so if it's not I don't think it really matters.
He could just plug the gate.
Yeah. You guys paid the most to come here.
I've always found that so insane. Like, yeah, we paid you, you paid triple the amount of the ticket that probably would have been 3 or 4 years ago. Now let's applaud. Yeah. I've always found that hilarious, right? But Meltzer star rate this show, Robin.
Oh, 5 stars. I mean, no, look, as a whole, like, if I were judging it from beginning to end and saying, like, and then taking the average, it would be like 4 or 4.5, right? Like, if I was doing that, I would probably say, like, the opener was 4, the second match was 3.5, Cody and KO was 4.5, and the last one was 5. But because this thing is all about moments, and the Rumble, everybody gets hyped because of the Rumble, and you deliver in that fashion, it makes and nothing was weak. 5 stars.
Screw it. I give 5 stars too, right? It was fun. That's the point of wrestling, right? We watched it. We had fun. That's the point. 5 stars it is. We're going with 5 stars, right? Robin, let the people know where they can get you at.
Yeah, Robin Lundberg Show over on YouTube. I run Women's Fast Break on SI as well, covering women's basketball. You can check out the post show I do for SmackDown with Denise Salcedo on Friday nights. And Raj Talk, my son, he has a YouTube channel as well.
Guys, I have all of those things in the description, including the link to Raj's channel. His goal is to beat his dad, to have more subscribers than him. And I've told Robin personally that 5 years from now, he's not going to be known as the WNBA guy. He's going to be known as Raj's dad. So, guys, remember to like the video and subscribe. I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.
Like I said, yeet.
Why does it do that?